This is Habiba with you. In this session we are going to discuss how to assess the structural models. When the measurement model assessment is satisfactory, after you can get the bootstrap results, all are significant. The next step in evaluating the PLS-SAM result is assessing the structural model. Standard assessment criteria which should be considered includes the coefficient of determination, which is an R-square, the blindfold based cross validated redundancy measure Q-square, which you can get in the calculate option, is a blindfold. You can see that the blindfold is a sample reuse technique and allows calculating the Stone Geisser Q-square value and represent an evaluation criteria for the cross validated predictive relevance of the PLS path models. And after this blindfold, you have to check the statistical significance and relevance of the path coefficients. For this, you can see the statistical significance of all your matrices and your loadings, and you have to check the relevance of the path coefficients and the significance also. Then in the last step, you have to assess the model out of the sample predictive power by using PLS predict. The PLS predict is an option which is give you the out of sample explanatory power of the model, assuming the sample size is large enough. And this method uses training and hold out samples to generate and evaluate predictions from the PLS path model estimations. But first of all, before starting for the assessment of the structural model, you need to check is there any collinearity issues, because if there are any collinearity issues, they might affect and give the bias in the regression results. And usually we does this process for the formative model, but in case of the refractive model, we can check the collinearity statistics, which is represented by the matrix variance inflationary factor VIF. And for the reflective model, we have to check the VIF for all our exogenous variables. So from GD to SI, or the we have to check S4, SI4, we have to check all the values, and we can see that all the values in our model are less than 3, which is an ideal values. The VIF values above 5 are indicative of the probability collinearity issues among the predictor constructs, but the collinearity problems can also occur at lower VIF values of 3 to 5, as per Mason and Perrault 1991 and Baker 2015. Ideally, the values should be close to 3 and lower. The collinearity is a problem. Frequently use options to create a higher order model that can be supported by the theory at Perrier et al. 2017. So if you are there are more of the collinearity issues in your model, you have to use higher order model for your study. And if there is not any collinearity issues, then you have to go for the R-square values of the main endogenous constructs. Let's find out. The R-square measures the variance which is explained in each of the endogenous construct and is therefore a measure of the model explanatory power, as per Shumali and Copius 2011. The R-square is also referred to as in-sample predictive power, as per Rigdon 2012. The R-square ranges from 0 to 1, and with higher values indicate a greater explanatory power. As a guideline, the R-square values of 0.75 shows substantial explanatory power, 0.50 shows moderate, and 0.25 shows weak explanatory power, as per Hensler et al. 2009 and Hare et al. 2012. So we can see that in our sample, for our study, we can see that the R-square values or the explanatory power of our model for our main endogenous variable is 42.7%. And but the thing is that the R-square is actually a function of number of predictor constructs. The greater the number of predictor constructs, the higher the value of the R-square. Therefore, R-square value should always be interpreted in relation to the contracts of the study, based on the R-square values from related studies and model of similar complexity. R-square values can be too high, thereby indicating their model overfit the data. But here, as we have the cross-sectional data, so for the cross-sectional data, this value is from 42.7 is quite satisfactory, and you can find in your adjusted R-square value that these values are significant as well. And after the value of the R-square, you can go for the F-square values, which shows that whether the relationship is meaningful or not, and it also assesses how the removal of a certain predictor construct affect the endogenous contract's R-square value. And the F-square value effect size is also demanding as per new APA criteria also. After the here we can see for our model the values from ED to WE are not only significant as we have found earlier, but they are also appear, this relationship also appears to have effect, good effect. And the three, as a rule of thumb, the values higher than 0.02 depict a small effect, and 0.15 shows medium, and the 0.35 values shows large effect size as per Cohen 1988. So here we can see that the relationship between the F-square values, if you go to the measurement model, you can see that the F-square values shows that the relation between ED to WE is 0.314, so you can say that you have a large effect size. And after checking the F-square value, you can go for the as we have mentioned earlier, you can go for the Q-square blindfold procedure, which give you the predictive accuracy of your path model. Then you can go for the out of sample predictive power, you can go for the PLS predict also. One more thing, in your structural model, we need to check that whether these path coefficients are significant or not. We can see that these path coefficients are significant, then you have to tell that these the sample explanatory power is also significant. You can tell this relationship is not only significant, but this is for the effect size has this relationship. If you can see for the effect size, you can see that this relationship is has quite good effect, that is more than 0.3, which is large effect and is also significant. You can get the SRMR values also. And in the smart PLS we have the option for the confirmatory tetrad analysis. This confirmatory tetrad analysis relies on the concept of tetrads that describe the difference of the product of one pair of covariance and the product of another pair of covariance, as per Bolin and Ting 2000. In a reflective measurement model, these tetrads should vanish, that is, they become zero, as the indicators are assumed to stem from the same domain. If one of the construct tetrad is significantly different from zero, one rejects the null hypothesis and assumes the formative model instead of the reflective measurement model. And this procedure is for the robustness check. As far as our measurement structural model is concerned, we have checked the path coefficient, which shows the significance of the path estimations, and we have checked the explanatory power of the model. We can check the effect size of those relationship, and by the Q-square blindfold you can check the predictive power of your model, and with the help of the PLS predict you can check whether the out of sample predictive power of your model. So this is done for right now. In the next session we will go for the CTT tetrad analysis. Thank you for now.